I've titled this Culturally Responsive Practice, Their Future in Our Hands and Our Future in Their Hands. And I want to finish up with some education imaginaries from 2022 for 2022 and beyond. So this is a presentation by myself and Sonia. Sonia's can't be here this morning, but she'll try to get in a little bit later. And congratulations again on the conference that you're holding online. What I would like to do in the next hour, if I may beg your indulgence, is look at the potential that is inherent in breakthrough educators. I think that Māori RTLB are breakthrough educators. It's not a new phenomenon, but it's new enough to be still novel. I want to reflect on some icons from the past and take a glimpse at some of the historical and more recent thinkers. But I don't want to dwell there. I want to get up into the main part of the kōrero and reaffirm the strengths of educational provision in Aotearoa and the strengths of Pou Whirinaki. I want to provide some examples and introduce the Hikaido schema. I think that's what I was asked to do today, and touch on dispositions and end with some education imaginaries. So breakthrough educators. So many in the workforce, it is argued, are at a plateau in their career or have stopped in their development, and there are some who never really get started. So that is partly the point of having your wānanga today and over the next few days. And that is to keep invigorating, to keep new ideas at the forefront. The second bullet point refers to these all represent a significant loss of potential if we were to plateau, which we don't want to do, but if we did, there's that loss of potential. The third bullet point says this is a hidden value that lies dormant, which, if not awakened, could bring great benefits to all concerned. So it is extracting this hidden value that is the domain of breakthrough educators. And let's make sure that we don't get mixed up with groundbreaking and breakthrough. Breakthrough educators actually have the ability to go through barriers. And the last bullet point on the slide is about breakthrough educators such as Pou Whirinaki seize the moments to explore a world of new possibilities for themselves and for your organizations, for your clusters, and for society. So we have a number of breakthrough educators from our history. Maharaea Winiata, Suapira Nangata, and Dame Whina Cooper. They knew that to steer clear of plateauing, they knew that they had to break through these barriers. In Dame Whina's case, it was land, no more land. Maharaea Winiata, let's understand Western science, and the same with Suapira Nangata. E tipu e rea, mō ngā rā o tō ao. That beautiful whakatauki that he recited to a 15-year-old girl all of those years ago. talking about destination and using the best of the Western world, but never ever forsaking the whakapapa of Māori. Others who broke through, you can see there, Rangi Nui Walker, Rose Pere, Eva Rickard. Some blasts from the past there and some blasts from the present, leading up to those who are still with us, like my first line manager at University of Canterbury, Sir Tipene O'Regan, Sir Toby Curtis from home, himself very much an educated into education, Tilly and Tamati Reedy, and Iritana herself, all broke through in the field of education. Some more who are very current, apart from Anne Milne, who's recently retired, but you can see some principals there, like my brother-in-law, Matt Bateman, Fetu's there, Anthony, and Paul Dolan from Christchurch, Island School in Christchurch, and of course Melanie, who's on later on this afternoon. And I really look forward to that. I've been working with Melanie a lot, particularly in her recent publication, Iho Taniwha. So there you have some more breakthroughs in the early childhood, Rita and Leslie, Jenny, Cathro, and Mary Tiana. So that we have a lot to be thankful for from those icons from the past. But RTLB, way back in 1998, they started to want to, there was a thinking at the time that things had plateaued to the point where special education was starting to become more orientated towards plateau. And we wanted to change the story. The ministry wanted to change the story. And a group of us were charged with changing the story. And we thought, but we're caught between stories. There's the old story of doing things the old way in special education. And there's the new story about ecological assessment and so on and so forth. So we wrote this book way back in 1999, as you can see, about being caught between stories. And if we were remained caught between stories, we would have plateaued and we wouldn't have had the opportunity to break through. So RTLBs have broken through. We can see there that we're funded to work together with teachers and schools. And second bullet point, there's a particular focus on serving the underserved, if you like. So that is where we kick in. That is where Professor Ted Glynn and I were charged with designing a curriculum that was culturally imbued and culturally embedded, if you like, with content and context that Māori could relate to more. And we set about designing the first RTLB Māori and bicultural curriculum. Not quite sure how successful we were, but we tried our best. And the fact that the training is still being completed now, and I see Chauncey is amongst us today, is testament to not being a plateau, but moving to break through, if you like. So just a reminder about Te Ao Tawhito, what we had to put up with in the past, And I won't dwell on this because this is all well known to you, about land, about alien systems, about warfare, about enforced migration, what we refer to as urban drift, imposition of different religious systems, a money economy, and all of this had pressure on ethnic identity. There was an effect, it had an effect on Māori manu mana motuhake. And if that wasn't enough, while all of those drawbacks were occurring simultaneously, what was also happening was a deprived education system. And so we know all of that. So that is just a prompt to remind us. And there was a lot of restlessness back then, as there is now, dare I say it. But if you go to the foot of that slide, you can see a publication that I wrote in 2015 for the New Zealand Journal of Education Studies. It was their 50th birthday, their 50th anniversary, and they got in touch with me and they said, would you write a article? And like a softie that I am, I said yes, certainly. And I titled it Restlessness, Resoluteness, and Reason, because I think in the final analysis, we won't break through any of these barriers if we didn't have reason. We can have restlessness, and we've had copious quantities of that. We can have resoluteness, but without reason or reasonableness, I want to put it to you, that it would hinder progress. So there was every reason to think about, as I was looking back at 50 years of Māori education, the Native Schools Act, and a whole lot of reports. You can see there the Hunn report, the Johnson report. I'm going to make this article available to you, by the way, should you be inclined to want to read it. It gives the Māori boarding schools and the Kohanga Reo 10-point plan right through to the RTLB service and then kahiketia. So there are a number of reasons for us to be restless, but we don't want to dwell in the domain of restlessness. We want to move on to how do we reason through this? How do we become better at our craft of being a Māori RTLB or RTLB Māori, or better still, a po whiriraki? So many of you would work in contexts like this, where you don't see many Māori faces, but the school could be very culturally responsive, like this one. All of these photos of schools that I've worked with, like this one, in a secondary school in Christchurch, like this one, a Māori boarding school. Fantastic. And as a boarding school person from way back myself, and I worked with most of the boarding schools a few years back, and this was one of them. And we have to ask, they are all Māori, they know tikanga Māori, most of them will be proficient in te reo Māori, they come from te ao Māori, they live as Māori. And you think, oh, they won't need cultural responsiveness. Well, I've got news for you. Cultural responsiveness in education is required, whatever the context. Or in South Auckland, where it's multicultural, all of these places, and early childhood and early years, 1 to 3, they also need cultural responsive pedagogies. So what about the data? A few years ago, I was working in South Auckland with a researcher, and they asked the questions of teachers in 18 schools. Do you know what ako means to you as an educator? And as you can see, I'm not going to go through these in detail. I just want to identify the trends. And only a few of them were clear on what ako meant, okay? Similarly, can you identify what can make a difference to raising achievement for Māori students? And again, very few of them were confident about that. 13% in actual fact, as you can see by that bar graph. Do you have an understanding of the cultural ways of thinking and acting and believing in the following groups? Māori and Pacifica. And again, there was in need of more confidence and competence in actual fact. How aware are you of the latest research in realising Māori potential to inform our teaching practice? And if you look at that, where I've got the pointer, kāheketia, and I'm a big fan of kāheketia, always have been, and I told Hekia Parata that many years ago, but very few teachers and schools were using the kāheketia document as they should have been. We could argue that the ministry maybe didn't market it as well as they could have. So again, very few, very unsatisfactory responses. So we can ask ourselves, what are the main dangers of Eurocentric hegemony in our profession? I'm only going to talk about the first bullet point on the slide, and that says a lack of attention to alternatives to mainstream knowledge, which is not only Eurocentric but typically focused on middle-class beliefs and practices, has the potential to leave the professional practice of teaching impoverished. Okay? So that in itself is a deficit statement. I don't say it's not right, because it's true. There is a lack of attention to alternatives to mainstream knowledge. But it's the way it's being said. So I would change that around to be more affirmative. And we can do that quite simply by changing the vernacular. And I'll attempt to do that now. If we were to pay attention to alternatives to mainstream knowledge, then our professional practice of pou whirinakitanga would be enhanced. It's just a matter of saying things in the right way, putting them in the right way. So people began to become more critical because of this lack of attention to other ways of doing things. And that's one of the reasons why we got into the Hikaido schema, because we wanted a Māori knowledge base, and we wanted Māori interventions to be present and to be real and to be understandable to the user, the teacher, the RTLB. So there are three bullet points there, and I don't have the time to go through each of them in detail. But interest grew out of a concern for the lack of attention to cultural ways. And it was Paulo Freire, that Brazilian artist, educator, who led the way. And Paulo was followed by Gloria Ladson Billings, Pauline Littman and many others. But here in New Zealand, we have our own thinkers, and I put up a few of them earlier on. So we are leaders in the field in terms of thinking critically about culturally grounded rationality in a quest for better ways. So what about more recent thinkers? Okay, so we've had all of those ones on the previous slide, and there are a number of them who are listed just below the title of the slide. And following that, we have teacher deficit theorizing, pathologizing classroom practices. I'm only going to refer to the red font. Denial of cultural difference, low teacher expectation, negative and stereotypical attitudes. So these are things that you have to address on a day or a week-to-week basis in your work. And you're looking for more tools, more resources that are culturally imbued, that are more than that, that are culturally embedded to help you with your work. And I can understand that. So we started to think about some tools. And in the green font, you can see the educational wheel. Ka awatea, high achieving Māori students. What can we learn from them? So that was a 2-year project. The Hikaido rationale, now called the Hikaido schema, early childhood, primary, secondary, now going to tertiary. The Kura Tapawha, a new publication that I'll get to a little later on. So there are a number of ways that we can do things, and seeing that traffic lights are all in the news from the government at the moment, we're using the traffic lights here on this slide the red traffic lights is an impediment, okay, to progress. It's always deficit-based, deficit theorizing, pathologizing classroom practices, cultural difference denying. I'm not saying that those are not a source for concern, because they are. But if we dwell there, we're going to plateau and we won't break through. The way to break through is changing the light from red to green. And a number of resources are listed there at the bottom of this slide. So I digress just for a moment and talk about the groups and types of behavior, okay, that you have to address on a weekly basis. So the groups of students that you come across are the well-adjusted ones, the coping ones, the difficult ones, the damaged ones, and the storied. The storied, oh no, not another rātahi coming to my class. I had Quentin last year, and now I've got Amy. What's going on? Okay, and I'll leave it up to you to work out who are the well-adjusted ones that you come across. Do they have 2 parents? Do they have books in the homes? Are the parents well educated? And I think of those things and I think, yeah, but what about the coping and the difficult and the damaged? We need to create opportunities for them to break through. The types of behaviors on the right-hand side: aggression, immorality, defiance, disruption, and goofing. Aggression, physical and verbal abuse on teachers and other students. immorality, lying, stealing, and cheating, defiance, refusal, sometimes hostile, to do as the teacher asks, and you must get a lot of that, not for you to deal with, but you must get a lot of referrals about defiance and immorality and aggression. And you probably get more defiances, not doing what the teacher asks, get stuffed and miss, make me, sir, that type of thing. Disruption and goofing, you'll get a lot of that because those are the ones that take up quality instructional time. So there are more questions than answers. And we continue to ask, RTLB service has been around since the turn of the century. And now we're almost in 2022. So where have we gone? What strides have we made? And I'm sure we've made heaps. And that is to be applauded. Okay, but we still ask in the red font, how can we provide research and teaching and advice on behalf of the RTLB Māori, Pou Whirinaki, to show teachers how to be more empathetic, more skilled, more confident in their work with Māori learners and their whānau. So we're asked as Pou Whirinaki to continue to step up, to look for frameworks that work for our tamariki, so aptly and mokopuna, so aptly stated by Shaman in this morning's whakatauki. So stepping up is kāiketia, literally means the meaning of kāiketia, and then I'm going to carry on because I'll check up on the time. Probably got about another 20 minutes on this keynote, Shaman. All right? Yeah. Thank you. Hope the rest of you are okay as we're going through this. By the way, at this juncture, can I let you know that if we're still friends after I finish this talk, I'm going to send the PowerPoint. I'll PDF it and send it to Shaman with a couple of readings that would support the content here. So I want to ask you to think about the functions of the teacher. And when I trained to be a teacher 100 years ago, all we were concerned with was that first function, dealing with the content of instruction, okay? And it's still the biggest, and it arguably still the most important, okay? An instructional function that intends to cover the curriculum, to ensure mastery, to promote favorable attitudes to the subject and to learning in general. So that's what we were taught at Teachers College way back then. And we got by, and most of us ended up doing okay. A lot of my friends are principals now, head teachers. Some have gone into tertiary like myself. But we didn't have any training to do with the other functions of the teacher. So there's the first one. And then we go down to the second one because the world changed, okay? That focused on the process of teaching and learning and we had to have a managerial function. How can I manage the kids in my class so I can get on with the instructional function? And that was brought about because kids started to become more difficult. They could watch wars live and violence live on TV just by turning a switch, and all of that type of stuff. So it filtered down, it rippled out into schools. The world changed again, and classrooms became more diverse. Diversity, which is why I wrote that book, Discipline, Democracy and Diversity. So we had to have a culturally responsive function. And that required an holistic approach, what I'm calling there a metacognitive approach, okay? So those are the functions of the teacher. When I put this to Sonia MacFarlane, she pushed back and she said, no. She said, there are only two functions. And I said, oh, okay. Tell me what they might be. And she said, a culturally responsive instructional function and a culturally responsive managerial function. So she, in her typical way, she pushed back against the trend. But I'm putting that out there. The demands of learning, multidimensionality, you must get this all the time in your work with teachers. Simultaneity, immediacy, unpredictability, publicness of teaching, and the demand of cultural difference. What is it about Māori kids? What is it about Māori whānau? All of those things come to mind, okay? We understand it, at least most of us do, if not all of us, but some of our colleagues need help. And this is where Pauwhirinakitanga comes in. We have to be aware of the balance of power of teachers, that they try to get themselves at that intersection of relative balance so that they are more authoritative rather than autocratic or laissez-faire. Okay, I could spend 2 hours on this, but because of time, I'm giving you a quick overview. So there are some congruencies in the research. Some choruses are coming through, and about successful teachers of Māori students and Indigenous students and students who come from minority cultures overseas and in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And these are some of them. There's a whole raft of them, but I'm indicating here the main ones. These teachers insist on high academic and behavioral standards, and they work to help the learners to achieve these. And you go to help the teachers to help the learners. They tapped into learners' experiences and cultures. So good teachers tap into that. They don't forget about the nuances of the dominant discourse. If it's kāheketia, if it's the New Zealand curriculum, if it's NCEA, then so be it. All of that is important. They took at-risk tamariki under their wing. They perceived teaching as a calling, provided care and guidance, and they were motivated to provide a context that was alive and vibrant. So some suggested contentions are listed here, okay? What should they do? And notice I've crossed out the word solutions in the heading of the slide, because I don't believe in solutions. It's too final. I do believe in contentions, because that is ongoing. So these good teachers, these successful teachers of Māori students, they did these. They had care for the students. That's socio-culturally located, or what Russell Bishop refers to as soft care. And I like that. I like having you in my class, Janine. I like you in my class, Shaman. Okay? So that is nice, and that is soft care. But what is required is hard care, or socio-cognitively located care. And that is caring for the performance of Janine. Identifying and transforming their potential, creating a secure and well-managed learning environment. This is not rocket science, but you would think it were when you come across some context. Insisting on effective teaching interaction, valuing mātauranga Māori, connecting to their culture, engagement with Te Ao Māori. Okay, not just valuing, but engaging with. Managing transitions, particularly at secondary level. When they're moving around from class to class, all sorts of things happen. Astute use of information, linking the culture of home and school, and procuring a repertoire of strategies. Because I will always remember one day when I gave a keynote and someone said, okay, so if we get the relationships right, then we're almost there. And I said, no, relationships is the platform. It's the tour papa, but you still require a repertoire of strategies. And that is why we got into the Hikaido schema. So there's my pūkara man, reminding us that the challenge is still ahead of us. There's the educultural wheel, which you'll always all be relatively familiar with. And the educultural wheel, I'm going to, if you haven't already got, because the book was written in 2000, published in 2004. And if you haven't got the book, which most of you won't because it's out of print, I'm going to send you chapter 8, which is all about the educultural wheel. Because I'm in a good mood and feeling generous, chapter 8, I've transformed chapter 8 into a little workshop, okay? So you can give it to your teachers and to your schools, and you can workshop chapter 8. I'm very proud of the educultural wheel because it made a difference for teachers, and it's based on concepts and values that come from Te Ao Māori. There are some pictures of the cover of the books, The first one is early childhood, middle one is primary, and the third one is secondary. This one's hot off the press. I'm not here to sell books. I don't care about that. I'm here to make a difference for our tamariki, as you are. But if you wanted to take something, a resource, to your kura, to the schools that you service, you might like to think about this te kura tapawha, based on you know what, okay? And it's an easy read, just like the Hokkaido schema. Journey to Tino Rangatiratanga. I see Chris Graham is here today. He knows all about that. So too does Hariata Green. I noticed she was amongst the people today. So Journey to Tino Rangatiratanga, and I think Chris and Hariata and others of you have had input into this at the side of Sonia MacFarlane. So a few resources for you to think about. There's the Hokkaido schema. And there are the dimensions of that. After we take a break later on, or very soon, I'll come back to talk about the Hokkaido schema. This is about braiding the rivers. And you can braid rivers to include Western dimensions of knowledge, but never ever forsaking Māori epistemologies. There are a few others. In chapter 8, you'll see the magic of Mary Morgan and Bev Anaru and David Riley, and it reminds us about teacher qualities. You can see Huakina Mai there, opening doorways for Māori learners, and that's very much a behaviour slant. Te pikinga ki runga, the reflective questions. I think you would do well to take some of the content of Te Pikinga ki runga to your work, to your schools. And the reflective questions are amazing. And I want to salute Sonia for that. So there are a number of recent and current culturally responsive programs. Huakina Mai started all those years ago at the turn of the century. Just published recently. Listen to Culture, Educultural Wheel, Discipline, Democracy and Diversity, Te Pikinga ki runga, he Māpuna te tamaiti, the Hokkaido Rationale, now called the Schema, 2019, 2020, 2021, Kura Tapawha, 2021, hot off the press, Huakina Mai, 2021, hot off the press. Took 2 decades to get it from there, the top of the screen, to there. And we're working on the Hokkaido schema for behaviour, and that'll be out next year. And don't be surprised if we ask several of you to be on the advisory group. And it would be an honour to have you on the advisory group. So special education's a specialist role, like Po Whirinaki, is to facilitate learning. That's what this slide is referring to. I'm just looking at my clock, it's 10:26. We're not doing too bad. Shaman?
Ka pai, we're quite flexible on our time, so kia koe matua.
Okay. I don't want to lose people by carrying on too long, but I want to beg your indulgence and ask if I can have about another 5 or 10 minutes to finish this keynote, and then it'll be nice and tidy. We'll take a break, and then I'll come back again if you want me to.
Ai, rawe.
So our job as Po is to facilitate learning. It's not limited to dispensing information. We can go with the resources. Some of them I've just outlined, but we also need to be well prepared, well conceptualized in terms of position with the body of knowledge. And for most of us, our body of knowledge is aligned to Te Ao Māori, which is a huge asset. We refer to cultural taxation, how much we're overworked. But think of it in terms of the asset that you are. You must have carefully stated objectives to guide the selection of content. Must be able to assess the extent that we achieve these objectives. Should we assume responsibility for the cultural specialization process? So we are in charge of fairly important portfolio. Without teachers and Po competent in their subject and the teaching process, no educational program can be completely successful. And then in red font at the foot, I'm saying, but without cultural competence, it is bereft. It lacks completeness, if you like. So effective pedagogy, a little bit on there. And you can remind your teachers of this. So I won't go through that, but you will get these slides eventually. The Hikaido schema is about breakthrough education, is a moral craft. Some of Sir Giovanni's work about the heart, the head, and the hand. Breakthrough educators, like you people, require acumen, craft, and know-how. You have to develop as you are, as you have, because that's why you've got the role of Po Whirinaki. Because you have a nose for things, and you have a Māori nose for things. You look at things through a Māori lens. Think of that as a huge asset. Having a sense of what constitutes an acceptable outcome. Don't expect it to happen immediately, okay? The successful outcomes are the incremental ones. Understanding the nature of the materials that you work with, knowing the techniques. Part of your getting this role is because of your experience, because of your experience with certain techniques, knowing what to do and when, pragmatically and morally, and having a sense of process. Sir Giovanni is one of my favorites. because he has links he doesn't know, but I found out that his links to Indigenous cultures are the heart, the head, and the hand. And the schema, the Hekairo schema and Kura Tapawha are the hand, okay? We have a heart, a desire to do well. We have the head, our experience over many years, leading us into po whirinaki roles. But we still need the science of the concrete, and that is the hand. How do we make it happen? And we realized that, the importance of that, when we started thinking about resources such as the Hekairo schema. Oh, a few photos. Here's a little guy. That's an inclusive photo, eh? See the little blonde girl behind the guy with the ball? Is the fellow with the ball, is he fast? Yep. Are the other team going to catch him? No. Will he score a try? Yes. How do I know that? Well, that's my mokopuna. Yeah. Okay. And in our work, I identify the mokopuna who need help, and the teachers identify them, and we all want them to. We know that they can't all be All Black captains like Tane, but we can aspire to them having a successful time at school, and girls as well as boys, of course, and breakthrough educators have disposition. So I'm going to read some of this. I'm almost there. I've actually got another 2 minutes. A po whirinaki role requires more than pedagogical knowledge and skills. It is also important that they possess positive dispositions that affirm all colleagues and community and tribal leaders with whom they work. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the way you carry yourselves. The evidence is clear, it goes on in that top section, that associates, like your teachers, like your principals, like your fellow RTLBs, respond favorably to this kind of relationship. The literature supports the notion that context wherein relationships are valued, a valued reality, tend to motivate scholarly performance and trust. So the importance of relationships, as I said, cannot be understated. But you still need a repertoire of strategies. In bold print, it says there, also the literature supports that Māori learners who have caring relationships are pushed, and that's important. We gotta push them, scaffold it, we gotta help them, listen to, tend to feel better about themselves, about others, and about learning, the learning setting that they are in. And these tamariki are likely to be more motivated and perform better academically. So certainly tied to our breakthrough leadership earlier slides. So what about the management styles of po whirinaki? I think frequently you should be democratic and consultative and participated. I'm preaching to the converted here. So if this is affirmation, so be it. I'm affirming your role as democratic and consultants. Occasionally you can be charismatic. Note that occasionally. Seldom be autocratic. Never be laissez-faire. Always hold your head high. You have every reason to. Always be culturally responsive. Be high on relational, motivation, and transforming. Be low on those things because you are the tumu, you are the stake to which the canoe is tied. So listen to culture, commitment to a culturally responsive or breakthrough approach is a willingness to understand and experience something of Te Ao Māori. So that's something that you have and something that you share with others. I won't get into the asked business there, but this acronym refers to A, for awareness of Māori knowledge, S, skill, K, knowledge, E, encounter, and D, desire. But anyway, that's for another time. Oh, there's Parekura. When he was with us, wonderful Associate Minister of Education, wonderful Minister of Māori Development. And there's the book, Kia Hiwara, and you're going to get chapter 8 from that book. That was at the book launch in 2004 in Wellington at the Beehive. And there's my mum between me and Parekura. So I'm very proud of that book for obvious reasons. I'm not saying it's the best book under the sun. I wouldn't dare to say that, but it's a good resource. Allow me to say that. And chapter 8, you can work it out for yourself. So this is the penultimate slide, mainly the whakakapi for today about education imaginaries. Challenge the status quo as a poem. That's part of your role. But you do that with graciousness. And you do that in an inclusive way, not in an assimilating way. Okay? Challenge the status quo. It's you're good at that. Critique the knowledge we take for granted. Critique some of the knowledge that I'm sharing with you today. Some of you might not like it or don't want to use it. Kei te pai no iho tera. Acknowledge epistemologies of local wisdom and global considerations. The work of Sir Giovanni, the work of Melanie Riwai Couch, your work. Look for different angles. That's what your job entails. Your angle is coming from Te Ao Māori. You look through a different lens, but you have to be bicultural as well as bilingual. You have to see things from different angles and look for how our children and their children and your children can grow up in the best possible way. Nā reira e heka mā, ko tai mai ki te otenga o te kōrero, tuatahi o te ata nei, o te rā nei. Nā reira kāni te mihi atu ki a koutou katoa. Hei mātaki mai, hei whakarongo mai, ki ngā whakaaro, ki ngā kōrero, e puta ake ana I tēnei pononga o te aroa waka, o tēnei pūkenga, o tēnei pononga hoki, o te whare wānanga o Waitaha. Nā reira, ka nui te mihi atu ki a koutou katoa, kei a koe anō Shaman.
Kia ora matua. Can I just confirm, we're going to take a short break?
Yeah.
And then you're going to come back. How long would you like that break to be?
I don't want to intrude on anyone else's time.
Oh, no, you are fine. Absolutely fine.
You fellas okay with me, Horiana, Nikki? No, you fellas, you hoa with me yet?
No, kei te pai roa sto kōrero, rawe. Kei te hi kakato te tinana, me te wairu.
He hakari mō te henengaro pēr.
Ai, tika tai.
Okay. What about 15 minutes?
Ka pai.
Come back at 5 to 11?
Ai, ka pai tira.
Ka pai.
Right. Kia ora. Matua, can I ask you to stop your share?
Yep.
Kia ora. It's whānau. Nikki has just posted in the chat. We have a giveaway. We have from our fancy